Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're continuing with Saturnastra Woden. This is chapter 8. Oh, pay him no mind, said Pippa laughing, and she added, petting Woden's hand. You were not scared, weren't you? It's fine, said Woden, shrugging it off. My main problem is the maid who scrubbed me too hard, and I almost felt she would rip off my skin. Hygiene is a must to maintain a healthy body, said Pippa. Getting up, Turpin said, Thank you for the meal, and I must be off, Mother, and I have work to do in the barracks. So early, asked Pippa? Yep, one of the maids brought a message informing of a person being detained, and he tried to sneak into our house last night but was discovered, explained Turpin. Frowning, Philip said, Again, how many does it make this month? 4, said Philip. Don't you worry your pretty little head over it. As long as we have the guards, they won't be able to step an inch inside our house, said Pippa, smiling. I wouldn't be so certain about it, said Philip, more to himself. And what do you think they're after? Asked Bryce. The usual, perhaps, said Turpin. And as Avatar, the morning is still up, and you will not be able to avoid your lectures by dragging on the conversation, said Pippa, hurrying them along. Pippa then left with both her sons to the classroom, and with her gun, Woden handed a new sugar plum to Jotun. Jotun looked at it and frowned, and she smiled when Cinnamon rubbed his body and tail against her leg. Crawling beside it, the pair made their way towards the gardens, aided by Cinnamon's ability to open doors. The Cinnamon is the cat. The nurse placed in charge of Jotun returned a couple of minutes afterward, and she saw the kitchen door open, and Jotun nowhere to be seen. Frowning, she said, that Cinnamon is going to be the death of that girl. And she then left towards the garden to look for both Jotun and Cinnamon, and with every sense of interest gone, Woden finding herself alone and with little on me, I said to her, So what now? Who knows? There was talk of an intruder. Was it magic or something? Asked Woden. Nope, just a regular, boring type of human, I assured her. Oh, then I guess we should go to town, said Woden. Sure, I don't see why not, I said. Woden left from the door of the kitchen and started walking through the camping grounds, and she saw a couple of guards heading outside, and she said to one of them, Are you going to town? Yes, what of it, Missy, said one of them. I'm bored, and I'm not allowed to go outdoors without an escort, so may I join your party? Asked Woden. We should ask the master, said one of the guards. I will take her, said Turpin, entering the scene, and I had to track down Father. Turpin then tied a rope around Woden's waist, and then he started walking outside with Woden having no other choice but to follow. While walking, Woden asked, Is this really necessary? I wore a leash when I was your age, and it is no big deal. You can walk freely in our house, but outside is dangerous, explained Turpin. Then why let me go outside at all? Asked Woden. I'm a bit of want-of company, explained Turpin. What's the matter? Haven't you got any friends your age? Asked Woden. You could always go to the bar. I went there once and didn't like it, said Turpin, and then he added, Yes, I do have friends, and I'm going to meet one just at this very moment. So I suppose I am not good company then, said Woden, feigning sadness. Only when there's nobody else around, said Turpin, smiling, and his mouth faded when he saw his father passing by. The dour, depressed look painted on the man's face even affected me, but just a little, and Woden coolly studied him with her large, interested, girly eyes. And Sir Boone smiled and he saw his son pass by, and he came over and asked, still with a hint of irritation in his voice, Where are you taking Woden? Said Woden. I remember your name, you daft girl, said Sir Bruin, and he added to Turpin, You should not have taken her out without your mother's permission. I saw her earlier with my brothers busy about their lessons, and I just assumed that since the girls went out with her that she wouldn't mind what became of them, explained Turpin. Sometimes some things take time, I suppose, and I cannot ask her to warm up to the girls from one day to another, said Sir Bruin. But then why should she? Said Turpin, turning to face Woden, and he said, No offense. None taken, said Woden. The process is easier within the childless family, and I can imagine what she must be thinking, like, Aren't your sons good enough, or Are you ever going to get over your guilt, or something like that. Both men said nothing, and in the end Sir Bruin said to Turpin, You can take her out just for today, and return her home before lunch, and I trust you, my son. Sir Bruin walked away and heading back to his manor, and Woden then said, The man is testing you again, and do try not to disappoint him. Do you seem me so mean-spirited as to neglect the helpless brat? Asked Turpin messing up Woden's hair. I do not know what to think, seeing as though we have only been living together for a day or two, and it's hard for me to keep track of time as of lately, and other days just seem to be running all together in one unbroken chain, said Woden, rubbing her temple. I had a month like that once, said Turpin, starting to walk towards the market. How do you make out of a rut? Asked Woden. By falling in love, said Turpin, smiling. That's stupid. You're stupid, said Woden, voicing my thoughts. Maybe I am stupid indeed, but they say that for a nice sword to strike through, he needs a maiden to cause his heart to beat a little faster, said Turpin, turning to glance at the flowers. And by now they had arrived at the flower market, and Woden, looking at the flowers, said, Maybe I am intruding on this little love quest of yours. Do not worry your pretty little head about it, and by having you with me, maybe I will look responsible, and then maybe my affections will be taken in earnest, explained Turpin. I don't know, not a woman have a soft spot for kids, said Woden. You speak nonsense, little one, and you will come to understand once you become a woman, started saying Turpin, and Woden then finished his sentence by saying, like you. If you were a boy, I would smack you for such insolence, said Turpin, laughing heartily. It is my experience that men will tolerate any sort of abuse when dealing with women they do not take in earnest, said Woden. And pray, why should I take you in earnest? You are barely out of your diapers, and despite your eloquence, you still have the heart and body of a little girl, and no amount of intelligence will change that, said Turpin. You have me beaten, said Woden, giving a mocking bow. Turpin stared at Woden with strange bewilderment. And it was such a queer mannerism for a little girl to employ, and her bow consisted of bending the waist till she was close enough to pat the sole of someone's feet, and each of the siblings, as far as I could tell, had their own unique lexicon of bowings and signs of respect or mockery. And the curly bow was usually a sign of mockery. Only rare did they show any true type of reverence, and I do not know if it is common practice in Woden's home world, or maybe a strange habit she picked up from their mother. And she always saluted in just a strange, bizarre fashion some of her peers with a martial salute, followed by a good step, followed by a pat on the shoulder, and depending on the mood, it could easily drag on for 10 minutes, and it always ended with a bit of an aerial arm wrestling, and as is to be expected, the brood of such a strange woman would suffer from the same eccentricities. Not knowing what to make of it, Turpin decided not to dwell on it, and he removed from his pocket a watch and stared at the time, and putting it away, he started to run, and Woden maintained the pace, and a quarter way still she felt like running ahead. And like a dog on a leash, she started pulling Turpin this way and that way, till he lost the grip on the rope, and yelling, he said, Come back, you little imp. I will not. You dare put a leash on me like I'm a pretty chihuahua, and we are now enemies, said Woden earnestly. Stop speaking nonsense, said Turpin, carrying Woden under his arm. And by now they had reached the arm, and for it was nowhere near the size of a considerable manor, it still had its own charm, which is perfectly cut grass and a collection of rose bushes. And after circling the garden a bit, I realized that the owner was a rose fanatic, and some of the most prominent roses in the collection were the Rosa Eden, and the Golden Celebration, Rosa Aversis, Rosa Ameniflora, and the Cabbage Rose, and my personal favorite, Rosa Mahalis. And I like this one because of the edible fruits it produces. And when nobody was looking, I collected quite a handful and placed them inside a jar. And I then added orange, apple, lemon, and sugar into the mix. And after heating and processing them, I placed the hot jar close to my chest to chill my marmalade for 25 minutes. And while I was amused as thus, Woden was busy perusing the interior of the house. And based on visual information she provided me, the house had 2 floors. The bottom one had the kitchen, dining room, living room, library, and study. And the second floor had the bedrooms. It was in the library where Turpin was to pitch wool. And in the other room, the pitch wool is like where courting the chick. And in the other room was the study with the open door. And Woden was looking through the books when her attention was caught by a fair figure resting within the study. The man or boy, for it was hard to tell due to his youthful face, was a small 5'3" in stature. It was resting in a cushioned high chair, and he held a book, but based on his size, he was just pretending to read it. Indeed, he seemed quite vested in the conversation of Turpin and the lady in the other room, and by now I had completely missed my marmalade in my wandering in the garden, and I was able to devote my full attention to the events in the exterior, and Woden sniffed the air in the direction of the man within, and she did that sometimes to draw attention to someone, and upon closer inspection, I saw why he was so interesting. Like her peers, Woden had an interest in magic users and their works, and she ran her hand slowly over the bindings of all other books, and her magic sense, as she liked to call it, was tactile. Eventually, she found the first magic tome, and it was written in ciphers, and over the surface the book seemed to be about roses. However, in the description of each flower was a mention of their property, and its true nature became apparent when it mentioned a red flower that had the property of blue. The discrepancies among the color and the fact that it mentioned something so obvious was a clear sign of the book's true nature. And in this world, each magical element was associated with a color, and it followed the common trends as back home, with blue for water, green for nature, red for fire. And beyond the similarities, the color palette of magic changed quite a bit, and black was the color of healing magic, while white was associated with necromancy. And golden color represented the school of alchemy, and with the traditional goal of turning lead into gold. And as for purple and orange, none of the current living mages remember what they represented. And Woden knows from the ashes that purple was enchanting, while the orange gold mainly focused on making shields. And she explained to me with her telepathy, the founders of magic in this world were a group of talented elves who thought rainbows were cool, and each one formed a school based on their skill and favorite color for the most part. Why wasn't summoning considered a magical discipline? I asked, entranced by her lecture. Any person with a strong enough willpower can perform a summoning, and non-magic people can perform summoning, so it's not considered a magical principle, explained Woden. Very interesting, I said, nodding. And what I was about to say more, but she was interrupted by Turpin saying, put that back. And Woden starkly ignored her and did not put the book back. Rather, she took it with her and sat down on the rocking chair facing Turpin with the open book. And then she proceeded to gingerly look through it, and not used to dealing with such defiance, Turpin got up, took the book from the Woden's hand, and he placed it back in the shelf. And again he proceeded with his mindless chatter, and once again my little Woden got up and started to shift through the books, and this time with more determination. And while at first she aimed at reading the books with care, now whenever she found a tome, she looked through it over the top before unceremoniously dropping it on the floor. And by the third book, Turpin pulled at Woden's arm, yelling, "You are itching for a spanking, little girl. If you do, is it do as I say, or I will hurt you. How very nicely of you. And what will your father say if I told him this unbecoming behavior of yours, he who never raised his arm against you," warned Woden. "He never struck me because I never gave him a reason to do so. Now, for a misbehaving little brat like you, I think he might just make an exception," said Turpin, flushing red. And meanwhile, the man in the other living room was laughing below his breath, and Turpin turned to look at the fellow, and then he felt rather foolish indeed, and brushing his hand aside, Woden said, "It is not your fault. Some things cannot be helped." And she spoke in a calm but patronizing tone, and she could have said more but decided not to, and I then asked her, "Why didn't you tell him off?" "It is pointless to argue with fools," said Woden out loud, looking at me. And at this Turpin looked quite bewildered, while the lady laughed heartily, and she asked coldly, "And who are you talking to?" "My imaginary friend," explained Woden. "How cute," said the lady. The man from the other room came somewhat humored, and he came to stare directly at where I stood, and despite clearly being a magic user, he lacked the spiritual power to see me. Not a magic user had a sixth sense, or even the magic eyes. He did have the tacit magical sense, and the moment he got close enough to Woden, he could feel her latent magical powers. And in their repressed form, she appeared to have very weak abilities, and then he told Turpin to calm down a bit. "There is nothing there." "Ah, thank God," said Turpin, giving a sigh of relief. "I was just thinking of how to explain to Mother that the orphan brat with the pretty face was the one who was truly defective." "And pray do tell me what defects did you imagine I had," said Woden, folding her arms. "Demonic possession is considered a defect," explained the mage coolly. "Not all beings that children are to are demons," said Woden. You certainly do not know much of the world. Demons do have the bad habit of clinging to children, and to protect you from them it is common for parents to put charms over their bed, and while they sleep the charm protection works, and once they are awake the kids are immune to the demonic influence, at least for a day. And this is why it is important for you to go to bed when told to do so," explained the mage. "This sounds a lot like tripe, if you ask me, or basically like made-up stuff. And my imaginary friend really is a demon when I say imaginary, and I mean that I sometimes wonder if our mutual amicability is nothing but a figment of my imagination." "What a weird girl you are," said Turpin, messing at Woden's hair again. Woden sighed. It had finally happened, and pushing the hand aside, Woden said, "We're going to be there for dinner if we do not leave soon." "Wait, did I miss lunch already?" said Turpin, worried about what his mother would say. Woden looked at the floor and corrected herself. "I mean lunch." And Turpin picked up Woden the same way his mother did whenever he was wheezing, and she fell to him as light of a feather, and Turpin walked out the door when Woden detained him by saying, "Aren't you forgetting something?" "Ah, yes, Galina, can I?" said Turpin. Just speak whatever you say," said Galina, yawning, already used to the routine, and she added, "What 2 roses would you like?" "I will have the dusty snowflake and the northern honeydew," said Turpin. And the maid returned to his office, and he jotted down something on a piece of paper. And I went there to check it, and it was a time and the name of one of the few local inns. And it seemed like a lot of silly cold talk for nothing. Still, I noticed in the other room that people were eavesdropping, and a couple were servant girls, and one was an elderly-looking man. And I suppose it was hard for humans to have an open, frank conversation when they were not used to being listened to. And Wanda was used to it, and she could be quite fastidious when she had a mind to do so. And today she had a tad languid disposition, and this only occurred after she had a decent amount of sleep. I asked Woden, "What do you think of this entire flower business is all about?" "It is nothing that should matter to you or me, and it is as mundane as most things in this world, and I would prefer not to even entertain the notion of it," said Woden somewhat evasively. "The notion of what?" I said, jabbing at her. Again and again I tried to bring out the matter, but she forced it out of sight and out of mind, and she can be such a prune at times, and I still understand the logic behind it, even if I do not agree with her point of view. And to address the matter indirectly, I began to fill Turpin's mind with negative emotions, and eventually the one I found most effective was the one of fear. And Turpin then said to Woden, "How long have you been living in this town?" "A couple of days, I think. Though I can't be for certain," answered Woden. "Has mother spoken to you about my affairs?" asked Turpin. "After the first day, your mother has forgotten that I am Jotuness," said Woden. "Oh yes, she does that sometimes. Weeks may pass before she even acknowledges your existence," said Turpin, smiling benevolently. And Woden continued, "So what is with all of this questioning?" "Oh, nothing at all," said Turpin. "If it is nothing, then why do I sense fear in your voice?" asked Woden. "Probably because your imaginary friend is filling my head with bad thoughts," said Turpin, turning his head to look at me. And in spite of the fact that he very much saw me, his mind chose not to perceive me. And it was an interesting effect I have seen among humans many times, and their minds can train themselves not to see problems that are staring them right in the face. "And I fear you may be right," said Woden, and turning to look at me, she added, "That's enough, Bayl. And maybe you should never be giving the name of your friend so casually, and if I know his name, I will have power over him. This is assuming that your friend is indeed a demon, as you said," Turpin, humoring Woden. "Power over a being can only be given, it cannot be taken. And even when you break every fiber of a person, it is possible never to be able to tame him," explained Woden. "This fallacy that knowing a person's name gives you power over it is nothing but silly superstition." Woden then added, pointing to a tulip in the market, "Take that silly flower, for instance. You can call it by whatever you want, and it will remain indifferent to you. Regardless of what names you give it, it will not stop being a silly flower, and you cannot change the nature of something or someone by calling it something else. The same can be said of the gods and demons for that matter." And Turpin took this entire conversation to heart, and it wasn't often that he had something that resembled an intelligent conversation, and by now they were nearing the railings of his home. And he saluted the guards when one shouted, and a fellow brushed past Turpin and ran in the direction of the manor in a hurry. And so did him. Before he made his way towards the manor, an arrow had planted itself right through the intruder's forehead. And Pippa coolly placed the bow down and continued instructing her 2 younger sons in archery. And based on her archery skill, it was possible that Pippa hailed from Sassari. And it was the only hold where women received some semblance of military training. And this was the second random assault on the manor over the last 2 days. And this was not normal in the very least. Then again, I am an alien to this world and its custom. It was possible that this was an everyday type of occurrence. Looking at Turpin, Woden asked, "How long has this been going on?" "Well, seeing as though you saw my other killer fellow, I suppose I cannot simply tell you that the man is just sleeping with a hole in his noggin," said Turpin, frowning. "And this random attack started several days ago." "Interesting," said Woden, making a mental note. "And we best stay on the alert. And can you take me to see your father right now?" Why? Asked Turpin. We can see him during lunch. It is his funeral, said Woden dryly. And Turpin was a bit of a loss for words, and then he started to run toward his mother, and he asked, Where is father? And before Pippa could answer, Woden said, He is in his study. And Turpin, still carrying Woden, ran into the house and up the stairs. And Pippa, worried by the tarantula, followed behind, and when Turpin opened the door, he grasped dropping Woden on the floor, and then he said, By the gods. And he made an effort to carry his father, who was starting to turn blue, and it seemed like a pity that Sir Bruin had chosen to make the attempt in such a beautiful day. And while his family busied themselves, Woden and I made our way towards the window to look outside, and I asked her, How did you know that this was going to happen? You ever had one of those feelings of deja vu, said Woden? I don't even know what that is, I said, somewhat amused. And we both turned to look at Bruin, and he was alive but fainting. And Turpin supported the massive frame of his father, and he gingerly carried the man to his bedroom, while Pippa ran in search of healers. And while looking at the papers in the desk, Woden noticed a letter that said, I'm sorry, Pippa. Said Woden, frowning. This came out of nowhere, I said, folding my arms and hovering over the letters. It usually does, said Woden. It is something that is not commonly understood by people who are so enamored with themselves. I can imagine you harming the thing you love the most, I said, chuckling, and then I resumed my somber tone with Woden stared daggers at me, and then I added, What do you want to do with the note? Said Woden, tapping her foot. In the end, she literally stepped back from the entire problem, and she went downstairs into the kitchen, and Jotham was there with Philip and Bryce waiting for the meal. When Bryce saw Woden, he asked, What happened? It is not for me to say, said Woden, sitting down. Alright, so let's leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless.